Gaslighting an assassination. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Now, Barack Obama, I think he knows his party's in big trouble. He's not stupid. Look, they stand for nothing. They have no leader, and their approval numbers are in the sewer. And now, on top of all that, the public is connecting the dots about his party's vile rhetoric and how it's fueling rage-filled, violent, murderous responses. But rather than pull his party off the edge of the cliff with a course correction, Obama decided to gaslight the public about the assassination.
On both sides, undoubtedly, there are people who are extremists and who say things that are contrary to what I believe are America's core values. Those extreme views were not in my White House. I wasn't embracing them when we have the weight of the United States government behind extremist views. We've got a problem.
All right, yeah, you heard that. He's practically blaming Trump for the Kirk assassination. And he's still advancing the lie that 77 million Americans who voted for Trump hold extremist views. Plus, let's not forget the truly extremist moves his administration made, like using the intel community as he was on his way out the door to push a fake Russia collusion narrative in hopes of crippling the incoming President Trump. Yeah, that was pretty extremist, don't you think, Barack? Now, even for Obama, whose administration started us down this dark political road, those comments were appalling. More on this later. But he knows full well that for the past decade, the press and Democrats have encouraged everyone, including impressionable young people, to think that our country was being taken over by a would-be dictator with a fascist agenda. Trump supporters were tarred as extremists. He's still doing it. Domestic terrorists, MAGA fascists. The word fascist now echoes through every left-wing protest. Can't avoid it. Professors, columnists, senators, governors, congressmen, even judges feed this narrative with the language that they all knew would whip some people into an absolute frenzy. And boy, was Tyler Robinson one of them. Catch this fascist was engraved on one of the bullet casings we learned. Robinson got it in his head that Kirk was an irredeemable hater, and he had to be stopped.
Roommate, why? Robinson, why did I do it? Roommate, yeah. Robinson, I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out.
Irredeemable. A week later, conservatives and kind-hearted Americans are still shocked and deeply saddened. I am one of them. But leftists, they're still celebrating. And we saw this in their posts, their videos. We watched them dance in jubilation over the murder of a fellow American. But there's no question, really think this through, there is no question that all of this is embarrassing to members of the press and politically damaging to the Democrat Party. So, again, instead of correcting things, they need to redirect the conversation. They need to deflect blame and then muddy the waters on established facts.
We don't have a motive yet. We don't know yet. We're waiting. Obviously, we've heard what the governor's had to say, what the FBI director said today.
Come on, we don't have a motive yet.
We know.
We don't have a motive yet.
What's
really?
happening with?
Really, that's CNN's position.
I mean, from law enforcement,
he just happened
Senator.
to fire the gun in celebration. You can't tell the motive.
Senator, that's not what I said, and I said law enforcement hasn't laid out a direct motive.
Meanwhile, in the real world,
The state is further alleging aggravating factors on counts 1 and 2 because the defendant is believed to have targeted Charlie Kirk based on Charlie Kirk's political expression. When asked why he did it, Robinson explained there is too much evil and the guy, referring to Charlie Kirk, spreads too much hate.
Pretty darn clear. Kirk believed in traditional Christian values, and Robinson believed that those were oppressive and that Charlie's growing influence had to be stopped by any means necessary. Yet liberal media personalities and so-called reporters in classic deflection mode are analyzing this as some type of coming-of-age story.
One of his texts said, when asked, how long have you been thinking about this? A week and a half. It wasn't, I've been thinking about this for the last year and a half. There are people who are trying to pigeonhole this as a leftist thing. We're talking about a love-torn child, a kid. This is probably his first real relationship, and somebody was disparaging the person that he loved. I don't believe he was motivated politically. I think this was motivated emotionally. He tried to defend his significant other, not trying to defend some ideology.
Thank you, Dr. Freud. This is pretty close to romanticizing an assassination. The same people who fueled the campaign to dehumanize MAGA are humanizing a killer and his trans boyfriend or girlfriend, whatever we're calling it these days. Now, this followed that ABC reporter doing the same. We played it last night when describing Robinson's text with his partner as touching in a way and an intimate portrait, noting that Robinson was calling him my love and wanting to protect him. Now, Gutman has since issued a statement condemning all political violence and tried to clarify his characterization. He said he regretted if his words weren't clear. Well, Democrats and their collaborators refuse to recognize the monsters they helped create. Just as they wanted you to not believe your own eyes about Biden's decline, remember, oh no, he's fine. You could see he wasn't fine. They want you to ignore the fact that liberal academics, students, and professionals were cheering on Charlie's death.
If you look across media generally, you have seen a lot of people trying to grapple with Charlie Kirk's legacy and what that is as a right-wing agitator and as a provocateur. To suggest that the internet is cheering for this is just the opposite, total opposite of what's actually happening.
But anyone on social media can see the opposite of what she just said is true. Gleeful posts celebrating Charlie Kirk's death are everywhere. And now law enforcement is widening its net. This is great news to radical pro-trans groups, not because they disagree with their political viewpoints. No, it's not a First Amendment issue. But they're trying to figure out if any of these groups helped, aided or abetted Robinson with the shooting or had prior knowledge. That's a crime. The probe includes groups in online gaming communities, including Steam, as well as a pro-trans organization called Armed Queers SLC, which took down its Instagram after Kirk was killed. The Armed Queers SLC founder said in an interview that, quote, sometimes violence must take place for tangible change. Clear enough for everybody at this point? If they don't get what they want, expect more violence. And they call Trump a fascist. But this is the world that the Democrats and the press created. They mainstreamed the fringe, they normalized the abnormal, and they villainized Trump and the tens of millions of hardworking Americans who love him. It's a stupid political strategy with deadly repercussions. And that's the angle.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.